Let's talk about the type of sushi, because you've got chicken sushi.
Yes.
And they haven't got chicken sushi in Japan.
And then he just said to me, some jobs are for some people, some jobs are not. I don't think this job's for you. And he fired me on the spot. Wow. If I find an idea that I like,
yep,
I'm kind of like a dog with a bone. They strongly discouraged it. But I actually, you know what I did? I actually went myself and I did a survey in Lambton Quay. The biggest challenge we have over time is that
I'm Andrew Cosgrave. I'm here today with Nick Katsoulis from St Pierre's. St Pierre's, a name that everyone in New Zealand probably knows. Over 70 stores, massively successful, opening 2 to 3 stores a year, and looks like you're going to continue to do so. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
The reason why I'm doing this, it's called Capturing Energy, and this podcast series. And I say this to every person that comes in here, but I was thinking the other day that out of all of the people, of all the energy I know, you would have to be one of the most energetic people I know. And really, really looking forward to talking to you about today.
Well, I do yawn sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah.
And the odd joke.
Yeah.
Tell us about how it all started. You know, Wellington, your family, immigrants. How did it all happen?
Well, it all started pretty much in 1958. Actually, my parents came over on a ship from Greece, and they were engaged at the time. And they came with my mother's parents. So the in-laws with the young engaged couple came from New Zealand in 1958, and they came by ship, and it took about 5 weeks. So I know some people don't like flying, but in those days there wasn't a lot of options, to be honest. So they came by boat, and it was pretty hard for my mother, who got very sick on that boat. But they came here in 1958, and within about a couple of weeks, my mother wanted to go back to Greece.
Really?
She didn't like New Zealand. She said it looked very dirty.
Wow.
Because everything was grey and it just wasn't what she was used to. But yeah, they stayed here and they made a good life. Yeah.
So, I know that it started off as a fishing family. Were they doing that in Greece before they came here? Or?
No, actually, my father was used to make boxes in Athens. Actually, he used to make crates and stuff like that. He wasn't an educated person. He left school at a very young age, I think about 9 years of age. He left school,
right? Because
there was the war on and so on. And so basically, my father came to New Zealand, and the Greeks were pretty much in the fish shop kind of industry in those days. And my father was he was a hard worker, no doubt about that. He went to work initially for at the harbour, at the wharves, with all the wharves,
in Wellington,
the wharfies, with Wellington, yeah.
Right.
And he wasn't. He stayed there for a short time, not too long, and then after that, he started working in fish shops with all the other Greeks. So basically, he ended up in business with my uncle, who was a bit older than my father, and they had a partnership of about 25 years where they went to about 2 or 3 different fish shops together and worked together.
So they didn't own a business at this stage. They were employees.
No, they actually worked with my uncle. My father and uncle were partners at that time.
So they owned a business. They started a business.
A 50-50 business with my uncle, yeah.
Right. So when you were old enough to remember, Dad had a business.
No, actually what happened was my father and uncle dissolved their partnership because they sort of had been together for quite a long time. And then my father just got a job, basically.
Okay.
And then he started working at a fish processing factory in Taranaki Street in Wellington. And he was just a filleter, basically. And one day he was walking along the street, and the local Jewish rabbi walked past him and saw my father, and he knew my father because my father had worked before with my uncle in the shop in Cuba Street. And he said, "Hey, George, we're going to close down the kosher butcher shop. Would you like to take it over?" My father sort of said, "Well, what am I going to do with that?" He said, "Oh, you could do a fish shop there. You can do it for some fish and chips and so on." So he sort of planted this little seed in my father's head of opening his own business on his own. And to that point, we hadn't really worked a lot in the shop with my dad. I was probably about 13 years old, I'd say, at the time.
Okay, yeah.
The other 2 brothers were a bit older. Yeah, and my youngest brother was a lot younger. Yeah.
So your dad got into business when you were around about 13.
About that, yeah, on his own. Yeah.
On his own,
yeah.
right. And so then was that a fresh fish business or was it fish and chips?
It was a fish and chips and takeaway.
It was takeaways.
Business, yeah. But my brothers and I, because we're a bit older at that stage, we sort of felt compelled to help him because he was on his own.
Okay.
So we helped him name the business and we developed the menu with him.
What was the name of it?
It was called the Fish Factory.
The Fish Factory.
Yeah, yeah.
So hold on, you're 13 and you're already coming up with a name for a business for your dad.
Yeah, we helped him.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so this is with your other brothers?
Yep. Got two older brothers, Costa, who's a couple of years older, and Perry, who's a couple of years older again.
Yep.
And my youngest brother, Foti, who was 7 years younger, so he wasn't involved in the business at that stage.
Right.
Yeah.
And that brotherhood is still working today in St Pierre's?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, okay, so you're 13, you're helping Dad, and you're selling fish and chips.
Yeah.
And how long did that happen for?
Well, actually, what happened was Dad had basically not a lot of experience in hiring people. Like he never really had a lot of staff. It was always just him and my uncle.
Right.
So basically, he used us as labour.
Right. Okay.
to do all the work. So we would help after school and on Friday nights. In those days, there was actually, you probably don't know this, but there was no weekend trading in those days. You weren't allowed to open on Saturdays and Sundays. So it was a different world, really.
So you were doing this after school, right?
After school, yeah.
And you guys all finished school? Did you do further study whilst?
Yeah, we all went to university, basically.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we all did business degrees. Yeah.
All three of you did business degrees, right?
Yeah.
And
at Victoria. Yeah.
Wow. So was there an interest at an early age? Did the three of you share this entrepreneurial business interest, or did that just naturally happen, or what?
I think it naturally happened, but like for me personally, I actually opened my first business when I was 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Pray tell. I'm afraid to ask what you were selling.
No, what actually happened was I don't know even. I did it, but I don't know what actually inspired me to do it. But I heard that in 1970, when I was 5 years old, the Lions were coming to play the All Blacks at Athletic Park.
Right.
And I was told that there were going to be a lot of people walking past our house because our house was on the way to Athletic Park. So I actually set up a table at the front of the house.
Okay.
And I went and bought lollies, and I laid out all the lollies on this table, and I bought them in large packets and sold them individually. So that was my sort of
You're
first.
Kidding? You're about 5? Did
5
you say?
years old. It was. I actually know that for a fact because I checked the date of that Lions tour. It was 1970, and I was 5. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was sort of like my first taste.
Can you remember making a profit?
I ate a lot of lollies that day.
Wow. So that was right from there. Did your brothers share the same sort of thing, or was it something they got onto later?
Oh, my oldest brother was quite entrepreneurial. Like, for example, Perry, when our cat had kittens, he made good money out of his younger brothers by charging them to have a look and have a pat. And there was different pricing structures for each opportunity.
I don't know. That's crazy. Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, we were. Yeah, it was an interesting childhood. It was good.
And when did you have time? Like, obviously, you're doing degrees and that sort of stuff. Perhaps after school you've got time. But what about when you started at university? Did you still have time to work in the business? Like, is it when you're 18, 19?
We were always pretty much helping in the business. I mean, my father had 2 businesses that I remember before this shop with my uncle. One of them was a fish shop in Newtown. It was called Island Bay Fish Supply. And that was a very old fish shop that absolutely stunk, right? I mean, it was so old that the smell had gone through the concrete walls and it was never going to come out. You know, you could never get that smell out. You walk in there and, oh my God, that was bad. And we hated even visiting that place. But we enjoyed the fish and chips that Dad would bring home on a Friday night. That was about it. And then after that, Dad and my uncle opened a place in Taranaki Street, which was more of a takeaway that serviced all of the students from Wellington High School, Wellington Polytech, and it was more like a lunch bar, fish and chips, ice cream, milkshakes. And my brothers and I would help there as well. Like we'd go on the weekends and cut the potatoes and cut the chips. And we were probably only about 10 years old in those days.
Wow.
But that's where my father got me into a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit too, because I don't know if you remember, Andrew, but you used to get money for collecting bottles in those days. And I think the drink companies, the bottlers would give the owner of the shop, like, they'd give them 5 cents, and they would give the person who bought the bottle in 3 cents. It was a profit margin there for the owner of the shop. But my father gave me the full profit. So whatever I bought in, they would give me the full amount.
Right.
So I would go and across the road to Wellington High School and Wellington Polytech, and I would make a lot of money.
Wow.
Because these students were so lazy. They just chucked their bottles in the grass and everywhere, and it was like I'd bring these potato sacks full of bottles, and I would make so much money. What
did you do with all this money back then? Did you spend it, or did you save it, or what were you doing?
I wasn't a saver. I was a spender. There were 3 things I used to spend my money on. One of them was pets.
Okay.
I loved pets. I had a lot of animals, right?
Okay.
Second one was comics. I loved reading comics. And the third one was magic tricks.
Really?
Yep. We had a place that we used to send away money for things in Christchurch, a magic shop called Delano's, and I'd buy all this rubbish from there that sounded glamorous on the catalogue, but when you actually got it, it was really nothing. But
so you weren't saving? Did you save at that point? Or?
No, I wasn't a saver.
Right.
I was saving, say, for my next pet. That would be about it.
Really?
Yeah. That was about it. Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether you'd have goldfish at that point.
I had goldfish too.
Did you really?
Yes, I had goldfish.
That was safe.
Tanks, everything.
Right.
I mean, they weren't cheap, that stuff, in those days. Nothing was cheap.
Your
if you wanted it, you have to work for it, you know?
So when, obviously a family dynamic, okay, your kids that must have been fun, there must have been arguments, that sort of stuff carrying on, and you become older, right, so you're 19, 20 or whatever, doing your degrees. Like Perry, when he finished his degree, where was he going next? Did he still hang around Wellington with the shop?
He actually got a job at IBM, so he started working for IBM. And then he decided that it would be a really good idea for us to open our own business. Yeah.
Now, when you say business, nothing specific there?
We wanted to open a business, and I think we definitely wanted to do something in retail because that's kind of like what we knew.
Right.
After helping Dad in the shop, build his little business. I mean, it was only a small business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But when I was about 13, I bought Perry a birthday present. I can't remember. I think he was 18 or something. It was like a big deal, so I had to go and buy him a gift. Anyway, and I bought him the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I bought it, but I just liked the title, And after giving him that, we actually started reading a lot of self-improvement types of materials and buying the odd audio cassette and stuff like that. So we actually had a sort of like coiled up motivation that sort of like was starting to brew at that time.
Wow.
And then as we got older, I guess we were getting to the point where we thought, hey, let's do something. Yeah, to do something in retail.
It's funny, it's a common thread. A couple of other interviews I've done, similar sort of thing. A book has inspired someone at a young age to go and do stuff. So was it obvious that you were always going to be doing stuff together as brothers?
I think it was really, it was kind of, yeah.
Or it just naturally evolved that way?
I think so. We never really argued or anything, and we used to, like when we decided we were going to open a business, we'd have these little meetings, and there was like about 3 cafes in Wellington at the time that opened after 6 p.m, and we had one that we'd go to and have these little night meetings. And
how old were you then?
Oh, we would have been sort of 18, 20.
You're having meetings and business meetings? Yeah,
business meetings, like how we were to do, what we're going to call the shop, what are we going to sell, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
So, wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting dynamic.
It was fun, yeah.
And the move, did you do anything in Wellington before you moved to Auckland?
Yeah. Well, we before we opened our first store, Perry and I went to Australia, and we looked around for ideas there because I'd never actually been out of New Zealand until I was 19. Right. Perry had been overseas to Europe, but neither of us had been to Australia.
He'd done an OE, had he?
He'd done an OE, yeah,
right.
yeah. And so we went there, and we sort of got inspired by an Australian concept over there called Cut Price Deli, which was, they had about 150 stores at the time, and they had the concept of bringing the retail counter in a shopping mall to the lease line, where people would buy without walking into a shop.
Right.
It was something actually quite different. Okay. Even though you see it now everywhere, you don't even think about it, So, so we got really excited and came back to New Zealand, and we sort of couldn't decide what we were going to do. And then so we decided on opening a seafood deli.
This is in Wellington?
In Wellington,
right.
Yeah. So our first shop was in the BNZ Centre in Wellington, which was an underground shopping centre. It was the first one it was originally called the Bank of New Zealand building.
Right.
I mean, I think it's changed multiple names since then. But we opened there underground, and before we opened it, though, I'd actually read the book about McDonald's, the making of McDonald's, and I'd bought the audio cassette from overseas, because Perry and I also went to the States and looked at ideas over there as well. Went to Disneyland and really got inspired.
What, 1920 when this happened?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, beforehand, we wanted to do some research. So I went and got a job at McDonald's, working at McDonald's, to learn a bit more about systems.
For your notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so, and I had a friend at university at the time, because I was still at uni, who was a manager at one of the McDonald's, and he got me a job there, and I thought it'd be really exciting. So the first thing I wanted to do was go out and serve customers, because I loved customer service. It was like that was my real passion in the business. So they said to me, no, you can't do that. You've got to actually stay at the back and turn the cheeseburgers, right? Turn the meat on the grill. So I was doing that. And then after about 3 weeks, the franchise owner of the restaurant came in, and I'd never met the guy. And he walked past me, and when he walked past me, I accidentally, for the first time, dropped the meat patty on the ground. And he said to me, I want the profit in my pocket, not on the floor. Right? He gave me this warning. And then he just said to me, some jobs are for some people, some jobs are not. I don't think this job's for you. And he fired me on the spot.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so I'm very proudly.
And how old were you then?
I was about 18, yeah. So
that probably really hit you.
I got fired from McDonald's.
Yeah.
It was pretty, yeah.
That would have really hit you.
Yeah, I don't really care because I hated that job anyway.
Oh, but you would have though. Surely you would have that.
I love the brand, but I just didn't like what I was actually doing in that particular role.
Do you think there was a lesson learnt there that?
Yeah, it actually made me be nice to our staff.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a tick. I've just watched. You showed me a video before we came here at breakfast, and you showed me a video of your awards. We'll get to that. But one of your really long-term serving staff members, Alf, and he's just raving about the way you guys you look after your staff. You can see they're all pumped. It's amazing. There's so many shops, and I'm just wondering whether what you've that lesson back then.
It did actually made me think about the importance of giving people a second chance, at least. Right. So 2 lessons there: look after your staff and give them a second chance. That's good. That's great. So thank you, McDonald's. And so you. The funny thing was that after we actually after he fired me, he actually walked past on the opening day of our St Pierre's.
Really?
And he went like this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It was cool.
Yeah, that's quite. Have you
maybe he knew I was a spy.
Well, I was just thinking, little Nick with his notebook taking notes.
Yeah.
Did your other brothers work in other stores as well?
No, I think they actually had jobs at the time because they both graduated at that stage, and so Perry was at IBM, and Costa was working at the tourism bureau at the time. Yeah.
So were you all? I mean, obviously, it sounds like you were working with thoughts of learning what you could to take to another business. Were your brothers in IBM and tourism? Were they thinking the same thing? That look, this is just a stopgap while we make our plans. Were they thinking that way as well?
I don't think so, because I think when they got jobs, they weren't thinking like that. It wasn't until they'd been in the job for about a year that we decided we were going to do something. I mean, it wasn't. I think it was a bit of a revelation with my brother Perry, who just suddenly got us motivated and said, hey, let's do something, sort of thing,
Okay.
It took that one person to say, hey, it's time to...
Right, and that was Perry, you think?
Attention!
Go you guys. Yeah, great. Yeah. So, all right, and so when can you remember that day? Was it a day or was it a specific moment when you guys went, we're going to take this further?
I think Perry came back from work one day and he talked about this location, about the BNZ in Wellington. It was underground, and we actually. The funny thing is, we had this proposal, and we went to this consultant, and the consultant told us that our idea wouldn't work. Right. We actually paid some money to a consultant because this is what we wanted to do. Because we opened a seafood shop in an area that there was no other food shopping in that area.
Okay.
And there hadn't been a fish shop in this area for a long time, right? So he said they strongly discouraged it. But I actually, you know what I did? I actually went myself and I did a survey in Lambton Quay, right? And I did a survey with customers, or not customers, just people, random people. And I asked them whether they would buy fish or seafood in this area if it was available. And most people said yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So young fellow, just actually asked us.
I just did it myself. I just said, go and do a survey myself, you know.
You've obviously got no problems talking to strangers then at that
Well,
at that
it was
age.
a bit tricky at the time, but, you know.
Yeah. How cool.
Stopping people on the street is never easy, you know.
So you guys are thinking we're going to do something. One of the questions as you're speaking, Perry went to the States.
We both went to the States.
You both went to the States.
Yeah.
You know, you're
on
in
a
your late
research
teens.
trip.
So how did you fund that?
Good question. I wouldn't even have a clue how we did it now.
Was it from selling all those lollies and comics and stuff back when you
I think Dad must have paid for our tickets or something in those days.
Okay.
I can't remember.
And the consultant, having money to pay a consultant.
Yeah. I don't think that would have been too much at the time, but yeah, it was. We went, like when we went to the States, we went and stayed with my cousins in New York that I'd never met before and stuff. So we had a few advantages along the way. But yeah, it was exciting though. It was really good.
But so
I had a bit of money saved up. We both had some money.
Okay.
But not a lot. Yeah.
But you were thinking about spending it, but it was an investment, not a holiday. I mean, you're on.
Yeah, we were determined. I mean, it was going to be part of this whole setup cost of this business. You know, we got to do the research and make sure we're doing the right thing.
So you get this professional consultant in, and then you question a professional consultant.
Yeah,
and you, at that age.
I think when you actually got your mind on doing something, no one's going to talk you out of it.
Right. Okay. Cool. Would you say that still happens today? When people, I guess you get consultants to give you advice on the business.
We do. I think as you get older, it's a bit different. Like you get advice, you listen to it, you take it in. Sometimes, I mean, it's like, but then at the end of the day, it's got to be a collaborative decision. It's not just like my decision or either of my brother's decision. You've still got to come to some sort of consensus. You know, it's a bit like politics, I guess, after a while.
Do you have, because there's still the three of you working that today.
Yes.
Is that a good number because 2 against 1? Is that the way it works when you guys make decisions? Or
sometimes it just depends on the level of decision, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we like to be unanimous if it's a big decision, that's for sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so we're ignoring our consultant's advice.
That was before the first shop opened.
Before the first shop opened.
Yeah.
We're going and doing our own
We're
research.
rejected by the property developer who said we don't want you guys because for a start your fish shop will stink and also you're too young.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So you got rejected by the developer of BNZ.
Yeah.
But
we actually had to come up with some scientific evidence, which we did in association and alongside the New Zealand Fishing Industry Association at the time. We actually proved to them that fresh fish doesn't smell.
Wow.
Yeah, we had to prove that.
You were very determined, weren't you?
Really.
Lots of, and so eventually he said, okay, you've convinced me, here's your shop.
Yeah, we convinced him. Yeah.
Can the location of that shop in the mall, was that a factor at that stage, or did you just take what you were given? Because I know your shops are incredibly well located now, but back then, when you didn't have a brand.
Well, in hindsight, we actually picked the best site in the mall, actually. We didn't realise what we were doing, but we were quite lucky, I would say, on that one.
Why was it the best site?
Because it was right at the entry as people came in. So we were kind of like the first thing people saw. So that wasn't really by design. It's just that the way they'd laid out the mall, it was sort of like where they'd earmarked something of our sort of offering to go.
What was the name of the shop?
St Pierre's.
That was the first St Pierre's?
Yeah, St Pierre's.
Wow, BNZ.
Yeah. BNZ,
The year, what year?
That was 1984. Yeah.
Okay, now the question that Kiwis are going to ask right now is Greek boys, living in Wellington, living in New Zealand, St Pierre's.
Yeah. With a connection,
How did that happen?
Well, we had a very close connection with the New Zealand Fishing Industry Board when my father had his little shop, because they would use my dad's shop to do a lot of temperature control tests on fish. for storage and shelf life, right? So they'd come to my dad's shop and they'd set up all their probes and they'd walk into the cool room and use his facilities there because they didn't have anything in those days. And they gave us a little gift one year as a little book with beautiful colour photos of all the fish of New Zealand. And one of the fish is John Dory. You know, John Dory is a very popular fish, but in France it's called St Pierre. And when I saw that name, I thought, that's the name. Because I thought it sounds a bit like Christian Dior, or it sounds a bit like, McDonald's being nothing to do with what you're selling.
Right.
But it's actually a good sounding name.
Yeah.
And I looked at my brother Perry when I saw it, and he said, yeah, that's the name.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a, what do you call it? Serendipitous moment?
So St Pierre's, I mean...
It's patron saint of fishermen was St Peter.
So were you at that thinking at that stage, look, it's going to be a fish shop forever? Is that the sort of thing that was... you didn't see it as being anything more than that?
Well, that's kind of like all we knew at the time.
Yeah.
But at the first shop, we wanted to sell everything to do with seafood.
Right,
So Perry and Costa, not myself, they jumped in their car and this is pre-internet days, obviously, and pre any sort of communication besides telephone. And they drove around the whole country and visited every single seafood processor in New Zealand.
Wow.
Before we opened, and made contacts to get all the products that we were going to sell.
Right.
And and they did all the research. They went around the whole country, South Island, North Island.
So no one's telling you to do this. You're just making it up.
Because we knew how important it was to get supply. Because our dad, who had the fish shop, always struggled to get fish.
Did he?
Because of the weather locally and so on.
Got it.
Yeah. So So at that stage, they just started harvesting fresh salmon. New Zealand salmon had just started. So we were the first people to retail fresh salmon in New Zealand in that store in 1984.
So your brothers are driving around New Zealand, the North and South Island, or both?
Both. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And making contacts.
Yeah.
Obviously, transport of fish would have been a big thing for you as well.
Yeah.
And refrigerated transport.
Yes, all that sort of thing.
Wow. And you're working out who's the mathematician? Is there someone who's more numbers between the three of you guys?
Yeah, my eldest brother Perry, he's the accountant. So he's the numbers man.
He's the accountant. What are you?
I've done a marketing degree, so I'm more the marketing, product development, strategy, that kind of thing.
And Costa?
Costa's more involved with the property now. He's on the property side. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the BNZ. Can you remember opening day?
I do very clearly.
Did you have uniforms? What
we had these beautiful white. We actually modelled our first shop design on a postcard that a customer at my dad's shop, the Fish Factory, had sent to us from the UK. And it was a customer who'd been eating fish and chips at our shop while they were on holiday. So they sent us this beautiful postcard from Harrods in London,
right,
where they wear the straw boater hats and the bow ties and the beautiful pressed aprons. So that's how that was actually our uniform on the first day. That's what we thought would be a little bit different. Yeah.
So, was anyone doing that sort of retail and dressing up like that?
I don't think so in those days. Definitely not in the fish, not in the fish industry. That's for sure.
So that's
they
pretty
were smelly old, rubber aprons.
I think we've got a photo of that, haven't we, of you guys?
Yeah.
And what about the logo and that sort of stuff? Did you have that designed? Or?
Yeah, the logo was actually. We saw this logo in Australia of a company called Norgan Vase, which was an ice cream shop. Do you remember that or not?
Yeah.
They've gone now. I'm sure they're not around anymore.
Right, yeah.
But we actually liked the way their logo looked, and we kind of improvised our St Pierre's logo on that one originally.
So Norgan Vase, so it's a circular sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so you've got that idea. You've got you've got your boater hats.
Yeah.
You've got a postcard, and you've put all this together.
Yeah.
It sounds like a show in a mall, really. I mean, what was opening day like?
Oh, it was like the builders were still constructing the shop at midnight, right? And we worked till 5 a.m. to actually put everything in its place. We went home, took a shower, and came back to work. So we didn't actually sleep at all that day.
You've got fish coming in the days before. You've got to have refrigeration. You've got signage, ticketing, all that sort of stuff.
All that stuff was conceived. My brother's father-in-law, Costa's wife's father, Jeff, was a sign writer. He did some beautiful signage for us.
Right.
And it was all handmade. It was all handwritten signage in those days, So beautiful, sort of like blackboard style, really, really nice signage.
The impression I'm getting is that, when was this? What year would this have been?
84.
84.
Yeah.
Were there other food retailers going to that sort of extent as far as branding and marketing?
Not a lot, really. No, even the supermarkets were pretty backward in those days, really. Yeah.
So was it a good day? Did you have lots of customers on the first day?
It was like, even our shop fitter didn't finish the job, right? For example, the glazier, there was one section of glass that where the crayfish were going to go, that they couldn't actually put that piece of glass in on the day. So all of the crayfish were actually not behind glass. They were, able to be touched, and people would walk past and say, "Oh, look at those crayfish! They look so fresh. It's almost like you could touch them." They thought there was glass there, but there wasn't any glass there. But no, it was amazing, because the building itself had been such a controversial one, the BNZ Centre. It was a building that had a lot of union issues over the many years of its construction. So when it actually opened, it was like massive news. So every man and his dog came down there, basically.
When the building opened, or when your shop opened?
Everything opened on the same day. The building, the mall, everything. Yeah.
Okay, so you were there for opening day.
And the public had never been in there. So it was underground, and everyone was saying it'll never work. No one will go underground to a shop, this sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were busy from day one, were you?
It was really busy for about 6 months.
Right.
Right. And then things went really quiet. And my brothers and I kind of started worrying, because the rent was quite expensive, right, for what we were doing there. But we sort of made this kind of commitment to give the best possible service we could to our customers.
Right.
And about 6 months later, there was this Wellington competition they just started called Top Shop. I don't know if you've heard of that before. It was like a Wellington-wide competition where the public would vote for their favourite retailer, and we got nominated, but most shops in New Zealand and in Wellington got nominated anyway. And you had this little ribbon on your shop, and that said that you were a nomination. And so all the nominees went to this big breakfast at the top of the cable car in Wellington there. Yeah. And lo and behold, we won it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
massive.
And we were quite shocked. We were just going there for the free breakfast because.
So 6 months, things got quiet. You must have been concerned. Yeah. But then you won this award.
We won, and then suddenly we got on the television that night.
Right.
And we got some free publicity as a result, and our profile went up, and business sort of recovered, and we started doing reasonably well.
Wow. From that one plug.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just as well. What if you hadn't have won it? What would have happened?
I know. Well, something else could have happened. Yeah.
So you've got this. Where was your next step from that?
Well, after that, we got invited by another shopping centre in Auckland to open there, and there was another BNZ building owned by the bank as well that was opening in Queen Street. So they told us, "Hey, why don't you guys come and open a store?" They actually invited us to open there. It wasn't like we were asking to open a shop. They actually invited us. So I drew the short straw and went to live in Auckland and opened that first store. But it wasn't easy.
How old were you?
I was 20, yeah.
You're 20.
Yeah.
You're driving up to Auckland, finding a place to live.
Yeah.
You've got to employ staff.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. For a start, the location, even though it was in the Bank of New Zealand, it was a completely different location. Where we were in Wellington, it was a thoroughfare to go somewhere, but the one in Auckland was a bit of a dead end.
Right.
So you had to go intentionally to go shopping. We weren't getting any passing traffic where we were. So it was very difficult. And I sort of worked really hard in that store, did whatever I could to actually stop it going under. Yeah.
The products at this point was just fresh seafood?
Fresh seafood.
Not cooked seafood?
Not cooked seafood. And even I diversified there. I started selling coffee. I started making select a sandwich and
Wow.
anything I could to
Wow.
make sales in that shop in Auckland. Yeah.
How many people did you employ at that store, do you reckon?
I only had about 3 or 4 staff with me at all
Right.
times. Yeah.
And your brothers stayed down in Wellington?
They stayed in Wellington. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long had the Wellington store been going at this stage?
Probably about 24 months, probably.
2 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And now you've opened this one in Auckland?
One in Auckland and plus another one in Lower Hutt in Wellington. We had 3 stores at the time. One in the Queensgate shopping centre there.
And did Costa or Perry
Yeah,
take
they
over?
both ran those 2 Wellington ones, and
Right.
I ran the Auckland one.
Okay. And how long did all that happen before your next step?
After that, actually, what actually happened was I knew we could do well in Auckland, but we just weren't in the right location. So there was a location further down the road. It was only a few hundred metres away, literally, and it was a chicken shop, and we ended up buying that and turning it into a St Pierre's, and it just took off from day one.
So you stopped selling chicken?
No, it was a chicken shop.
Yeah.
We closed
Hot
it down.
chicken or cold? Or
it was
hot?
fresh chicken.
Fresh
right.
chicken,
yeah.
Right, okay,
yeah.
Wow.
And so we closed that down and we turned it into a St Pierre's seafood and deli. And we sold more in one day than I did in the original shop in a whole week. So
What year are we in here? 84,
that'll be
85?
about 80, we're now on about 88, 87.
So I'm trying to think about the land. That wouldn't work today, would it? Because people don't. Do fish shops survive on their own these days, or have people moved on from that?
I think nowadays, I mean, they do survive around the world, but there aren't many of them, I would say, because the supermarkets pretty much do everything now.
It's changed.
Yeah.
So you've got 4 stores now.
Yep.
Two in Auckland.
Yep.
2 Wellington Way.
Yeah.
And you guys are 20. You've been going 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And what's next?
Well, we had the GFC. First of all, was a share market crash of 87. So that was tough. I mean, we've been through the share market crash, multiple. We've been through the SARS pandemic. We've been obviously through COVID. We've been through. There's another thing that happened in the early 90s called the toxic algal bloom, which you probably don't know what that was, but that was when there was this toxin in the ocean in New Zealand, in the upper North Island, and the publicity was so negative that it turned people off eating seafood.
Wow.
So within a week, our whole company sales had dropped by 50%. And it stayed like that for about a year. So that was a real tough time.
How did
for
you
us.
survive?
Well, we just worked hard. Look, we just took no wages, all
Right.
that kind of thing,
Wow.
So I have this saying that if you want to get into business for yourself, work out the lowest amount you'd ever work for anyone else for, and then halve it, and survive for 2 years at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Because it's not easy starting a new business.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many years did this, so you've been going, how many, 3, 4, 5 years? Or
five or 6 years by that time.
And the toxic algae bloom.
Yeah, shocking, yeah.
And then 50% drop in profits, kept on going.
Sales,
didn't give
not
up.
profits, sales.
Sales.
There were no profits. Yeah.
But didn't give up.
They didn't give up.
Wow. And how long till things started changing then? Is it?
Well, things started slowly recovering, and my brothers came up to Auckland and started sort of supporting me because I was quite young, running the whole operation myself. But we actually had sushi in our original shop in Wellington, and we sold it for about 6 months, but it didn't really sell that well.
Yeah.
So we gave up on it because there just wasn't the Asian influence in New Zealand at that time.
Right.
And then basically as time went on, we tried it again in the early 90s, about 1994, and there was sort of like small green shoots of interest in it.
How many stores did you have then?
Probably had about 7 stores.
7 stores.
Yeah,
So you opened. You've got 2 B and Zs up here. You've got a couple down in Wellington.
We'd closed one of that. We'd closed the second B and the second one at Queen Street. Yeah,
And
then we'd open Newmarket, Pakuranga.
Was that 277 in Newmarket?
277 Newmarket.
How was that shop?
Good.
That was a good
it was a
location.
good shop. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
That's where we met. way back then.
Yeah.
And so you were selling, I think you were selling some chicken products, weren't you, at that point as well?
Seafood.
You were trying
chicken,
anything, right?
Well, we always had these chicken cordon bleus and, that kind of stuff in the original shop as well as part of the menu.
So if I got this right, you've always been, you said you were doing sandwiches. I mean, you're always trying stuff. You've always been trying stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So you've got a brand.
Trying to see what sticks, basically, yeah.
What do you think
or
about...
surviving is another point.
What do you think about the adage stick to your knitting as far as that's concerned?
What I think of the adage, stick to your knitting. I agree with it. If your knitting's going well, stick to it.
Okay, that's good. Okay, right.
But
So
if you keep putting the needle into your finger while you're knitting, don't stick to it.
But you're saying is don't let it stop you from trying something, and because you have been doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a story that one day you got someone out the front of your store in 277 that started selling sushi. That's
right? That's right. Yeah, just one young lady went out and started making sushi. Yeah.
Okay.
And there wasn't a lot of interest in it, but after a while, people started stopping and looking. And seeing what's going on here.
So there's a difference between the product that you had that wasn't ready to eat to ready to eat product. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, most of our product was to take home and cook yourself.
Fish.
Yeah. We had a few salads and snacks like that, but not so much.
So that's obviously been a massive change in your business though, isn't it?
Yes.
So was it a gradual change?
It was very incremental.
Right.
We did Newmarket, then we did... the downtown shop in Auckland and Christchurch. Yeah, we'd opened a shop in Christchurch at that stage as well. Yeah.
I'm trying to work out, when did you start to realise that sushi was going to overtake your other business?
I didn't know. I don't know whether we originally thought that, but I do remember in about 1995, I actually went to the optometrist, and how we actually started off in the sushi was through this experimentation. But I actually went to Japan. Now, going back to this optometrist thing quickly, I actually found out I had an eye condition called keratoconus, which meant I really couldn't see very well, and I didn't realise that my vision was that bad. And they put these lenses on me, and I went down from the optometrist to the shop, and I looked at the sushi and I thought, my God, now I see why people are buying this stuff. It looks amazing, It was so colourful.
Right.
It was so colourful. I just had never seen it in that light before.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
But previous to that, I'd actually been privileged enough through the New Zealand Fishing Industry Board to be invited on a trade mission to Japan.
Okay.
So when we'd started selling sushi, I'd got this invitation, so I took it. And I absolutely fell in love with Japanese food over there. I went with about 20 other New Zealand seafood companies, and we all went together on a fish market, the Tokyo Fish Market, visiting aquaculture facilities, factories, everything. It was amazing.
What year was this?
Yeah, about 1994.
So sushi wasn't a thing in New Zealand back then?
No, it wasn't, no. I mean, there was a couple of high-end Japanese restaurants in New Zealand at the time.
Yeah.
And there was one or two takeaways as well here.
Okay.
But it was in its very early stage of
you've
product.
come back from Japan buzzing.
Yeah,
about sushi.
I was kind of buzzing, yeah.
Right.
And I wanted to go again real quick.
I don't think you've stopped buzzing since, Nick.
No.
But you wanted to go again. So then you've come back and you've gone, we've got to do this sushi thing. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got to become better at it. And my father, although he was in business for himself, he was always a battler. He was always a battler in business.
Yeah.
And the reason was because he wasn't in the right part of the seafood industry. Like, the people that made the money out of the seafood industry initially were the fishermen.
Yep.
Because they actually ended up getting all the quota, and the quota was worth money, right?
Yep.
So my father didn't really end up with anything. He just had a little business.
Yep.
Whereas these people that were fishing, they ended up owning these licenses to catch fish that were worth, in the future, lots of money.
Yep.
Right? It was like an import license or something like that, but it was a catching license, basically. And so I said to my brother, look, if we're going to be in this business, we've got to own the supply. We've got to own the best ingredients we can get.
Okay.
So that's when I wanted to go back to Japan again, and I went back and made a connection with a Japanese trading company there. In fact, I had 2 meetings lined up that I'd arranged through a friend of mine who was Japanese. She had arranged some letters to 2 trading companies. The first trading company actually didn't turn up at all. And I think it's because of the English factor. They probably just didn't feel comfortable meeting a non-Japanese person. But the second trading company that I met, these two gentlemen turned up, which were very polite and nice, couldn't speak a lot of English, but they were very pleasant. They bought a couple of samples, and they are still our supplier today.
Samples of what?
Ginger, seaweed, soy sauce, a few other bits and pieces, yeah.
So I just want to just go back to what you've just said. So you went back to your brothers, you saw where suppliers of fish owned the supply.
Yeah.
You wanted to own the supply, and so the suppliers of fish, they don't own. They go out and harvest the fish, and then they own they regulate.
They own the quota. They own the right to fish. They own the right to fish.
And so you thought, well, what we need to do is go to Japan and own, if you like, the supply of ingredients.
Yeah, yeah.
And
get the connections. Yeah, get the connections for the right ingredients. Yeah.
So no one else was doing this in New Zealand at the time.
No,
you were very much at the forefront.
Yeah.
And you were bringing, and I would say, it seems to me, very high quality ingredients. Was that a thing?
Yeah.
You just went for the best.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me once that back in those days, or maybe a little bit after, pickled ginger was all pink in New Zealand, and you started bringing the brown stuff in.
The white stuff, yeah.
The white stuff.
It's called white, but
white,
brown. It was a light brown.
White, right. No, what's the story there?
That was actually, believe it or not, I'd never seen the white ginger myself.
Okay.
And I'd only seen the pink ginger in New Zealand. So when we imported the ginger, our first container came, and lo and behold, I opened the box and it was white, and I thought they'd sent us the completely wrong product.
Really?
And then it wasn't until they later told me, oh, this one doesn't have the food colouring in it. I thought, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Let's stick with this one because it's natural. You know?
Did you have pushback from the clients saying this isn't the ginger the way we know it?
Slightly, I'd say, but I'd say the market was so underdeveloped there.
Yeah.
It was the market was a piece of white paper that you could sort of educate, from day one, from scratch. Yeah.
Let's talk about the type of sushi, because you've got chicken sushi.
Yes.
And they haven't got chicken sushi in Japan?
No, they haven't got chicken sushi.
So how did that happen?
Well, initially, we had mainly seafood flavours, and because I'd actually been to Japan a couple of times at that stage, we'd seen someone selling chicken sushi in Australia, and I thought, well, no, we can't do that. That's not Japanese. But we did try it.
Okay.
And it was actually quite successful. And it was, the good thing about it was a lot of people that didn't like seafood would try sushi. And because a lot of people don't like seafood.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like seafood. So it was a good way of introducing those people to give it a go, at least.
And it sells well today, chicken sushi?
It's a very good seller.
Do you know roughly percentage-wise what it'd be? Or
probably 30% of our sushi.
30%.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, has that changed? Have people become more comfortable with the Japanese sushi? And was there a point there where chicken was really high, but it's slowly dropped, or has it always been about 30%?
It's always been about.
I
mean, it's obviously started lower than that, but it's sort of like sits where it does now. People still love salmon, though. Salmon is probably also one of the very popular flavours. Tuna.
What do your Japanese suppliers? What do they think when did they hear that you were selling chicken sushi?
Yeah.
How did that go down?
Actually, it was funny. I went to our soy sauce supplier, put a special lunch on for all of their international customers in Tokyo, and their master chef made some teriyaki chicken sushi rolls on the day in Tokyo.
Right.
But to be honest, it wasn't as good as ours.
Just a little bit biased there.
Yeah.
Wow. And so from, is that the sushi component, did that just gradually grow and take over?
Gradually grew, yeah. We started off with 4 flavours of sushi initially.
Okay.
In fact, the first shop we only had 1 flavour in Wellington. We had Japanese pickle and cucumber was the initial flavour we had.
Wow.
Weren't too many vegetarians in those days, probably, yeah. But and then in Auckland we had the first one, I think, was fresh fish with wasabi was one roll.
Fresh fish, what fish was it?
It was, I think we were using snapper at the time.
Okay.
And then we had smoked salmon and avocado.
Yep.
And then we had a crab stick with cucumber and mayonnaise. And then I think the last one was a vegetarian one. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, yeah, we had 4 flavours.
And you were selling them in little packs that you sell them now?
Yeah,
is that
similar sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
And right, so then did it sort of just take off, or was it a gradual thing?
It was very gradual. Yeah,
Right.
It was very gradual. But definitely you could see there was growth. It was like growth from a very low level. It started off at a really low level, but it was going up. Probably if you worked it out on percentages, it was growing quite quickly every year.
Right.
And so what we did was we set up, in our fish shops, we set up a little department in each that would make the sushi, a little corner, like a sushi corner type thing.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember exactly which shop it was. I think it was actually my father's shop in Cuba Street that we ended up converting into the first sushi-only shop.
Okay.
That we just did sushi to go.
What year was this roughly?
It's probably about, because my father kind of wanted to retire at the time.
Yep.
And, he wanted to close his fish and chip shop down because we weren't helping him anymore. And my mother was like getting a bit tired of running it herself. So we converted that, and that was probably about early, 1996, 7, around there. Yeah.
Just interesting, we were talking before, we're actually talking to JJ from Pod Lab here, and a new business that these guys have got. But one of the things I've noticed from what you said to her then, and also what you've just said now, is that it's gradual. It's not an overnight. You've tried something, and you've grown gradually, organically. Would that be right?
Yeah. I never forget what my supplier taught me from Japan. I was very lucky. The company that we ended up trading with, it's called Tokyo Mutual Trading Company. The founder, his name was Noritoshi Kanai, and he is the pioneer of Japanese food in the USA.
Wow. He
developed the Japanese food industry, and him and I became very good friends. He passed away about 10 years ago. I went to his funeral in LA. He was very well respected, received national awards in the US for his contribution to culinary in the USA. And they actually use the soybean paper. It's called maminori, and we sell it in our stores. It's like a sheet that looks like seaweed, and you roll up the sushi. If you don't like seaweed, we use this sheet called maminori. And I asked him, I said, look, it's really slow, this maminori in New Zealand. I said, how long did it take off in the US? Because he started in about the early 60s doing Japanese food. He said to me, about 20 years.
Wow.
So, just things take time.
Yeah.
And you can't buy time either. You can't push it. You can't push it to make it happen faster.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes.
You're always trying stuff. I mean, you and I have really interesting conversations about trying new stuff, and I know that you... Tell me about you texting yourself with ideas.
Well, I do get a lot of ideas, not all good ones, but I do get a lot of ideas. So I still have a diary now, but a physical diary that I write notes in. But when St Pierre's first opened, I'd have a diary every year and write down everything I was doing every day, literally.
Right.
In fact, I found about 35 years of diaries the other day in my garage. So I've started going through them, but I've only gone through about 2 of them because there's so much information there. But recently what I do is I do get ideas quickly, and they quickly go out of your mind. Like you're driving along, you suddenly get an idea, or wherever you might be, you get an idea, and then like you say, oh, I'll remember that, I'll write it down, and then a few seconds later you just can't remember what it was. I mean, have you had that before?
All the time. The older I get, the more it happens here.
So anyway, what I do is I just have this bogus number on my phone that I text these little ideas to, so I have them all text, so they will get rejected, of course.
Right.
But so I've
on your phone.
I've got it on my phone, so I just got all these ideas, and like it could even be in the middle of the night,
When do you go back to those ideas? Do you go back the next day, or do you...
I go back to them all the time, and I scroll through them, and because a lot of the time you look at them, in hindsight, you look at them and they're kind of meaningless.
Right.
You think, oh, that's ridiculous. How did I ever think of that? That's not going to work. But, you do get the good ones that do work. But, yeah.
So if you hear about business and successful businesses, there's a lot of businesses that have ideas, the people have ideas, but they don't actually do it. Obviously, you do the stuff, right? You actually try it.
If I've got a good idea, I'll put some effort. I always say that, it's like having your foot on, if you've ever driven a manual car, it's like having your foot on the accelerator and making a lot of noise,
right?
But action is actually releasing the clutch, right? And moving.
I like that.
Yeah. So I always do if I find an idea that I like.
Yep.
I'm kind of like a dog with a bone.
Are you?
Yeah, I'll keep going.
You'll keep going.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples of ideas that you've done that have stuck with the company or stuck with the brand or a product or an advertising idea?
For example, the Bento Bowl that we do in our stores now.
Yep.
The Bento Bowl, like we'd started off selling sushi and that was popular, but because I was going back to Japan every year, a couple of times a year for meeting all the suppliers and so on, I realised that there was far more food available in Japan, not just sushi, So
Right.
I set up this Bento Bowl department in one store, but it didn't really go well.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, no, we've got to give it another go. So we did it in another store, did another one, and slowly it started improving. But it didn't take off still straight away till we had at least 10 of them going. I could have given up. I could have given up from the start and said, oh, look, we're not making any money here.
Yeah.
Waste of time. No one knows what kushiyaki, no one knows what katsu is, no one knows what donburi is, no one knows what this is. Forget about it, Nick. You're never going to educate the people. They'll never learn. But with a lot of persistence, people started knowing, people started traveling, more Asian people started coming to New Zealand that were aware of the products, and so
you're certainly determined. You're just so, and it's funny. I was in Japan earlier this year, and you go over there and you realise how donburi and katsu and teriyaki and teppanyaki, and now it's all familiar. Potentially because of St Pierre's, but so and I love that analogy that you've given, that people with ideas have got their foot on the accelerator but they haven't engaged the clutch, and you actually will physically try something and you'll keep trying it. But have you ever tried something and said no, it's not working, and stopped it?
I did actually. I mean, I opened a Japanese tea lounge once before.
Where was that?
It was in Pakuranga in the shopping centre there, because I'd fallen in love with Japanese tea. I love Japanese tea.
Right.
Sencha, gyokuro-cha, hojicha. There's so many different types of beautiful teas that Japanese drink.
Right. Okay.
But you don't see it often overseas in other countries. You might see it in a small Japanese grocery store. No, they're not even grocery store. They're quite big supermarket in the States or something like that. But I tried it here and it didn't really succeed. But what did succeed was I imported Japanese desserts to go with the tea. They're called mochi. Have you ever tried one before?
My wife loves them.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the mochi was actually the find of the whole project, because we now sell mochi in all 75 locations and they go really well.
Yeah.
And but I'm still passionate about Japanese tea. I'd like to get into Kiwis' mouths.
At what stage did you say, right, we're going to stop this experiment, we're going to move on?
Yeah, well, we were paying quite a lot of extra rent for the space, so we just sort of it just wasn't paying for itself. But it was there for about 3 or 4 years, I think.
So, right, okay, so a good whack of time. So some things, you'll give something a certain amount of time, but then I guess the money and the energy. I
was just listening to a podcast yesterday, actually, on IKEA, and they actually opened in Japan, and they lost money for 12 years and then closed down.
Wow.
They put up the white flag that it wasn't going to work, So, yeah.
One of the things I really like about St Pierre's now is the branding, right? I mean, you've got a jingle, right? You've got your own jingle. Yeah. You've got the yellow little huts that look like Japanese. Yeah. You've done your 40 years. Congratulations. You're going to show us your T-shirts. There you go. Rolling
look at that.
Since 84. There we go.
Yeah.
Is that you or the sushi? Is it rolling?
Oh, no, I've been rolling before that.
And, your branding, I mean, billboards, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Where does all that, is that another part of your business?
Well, that advertising was something that we didn't really do a lot of in the early days, to be honest. We couldn't really afford it. And even when we started it, we couldn't really afford it. But I was kind of like, again, that was one of those, I was the dog with the bone in the mouth saying, we've actually got to get our name out there. We've got to promote what we're doing. We can't be too passive. Yeah.
Did your brothers agree with that? Were there any arguments? Right,
no.
Okay. So interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, advertising is always one of those costs that you think, do you really need to do it? And but yeah.
You advertise radio, a lot of radio.
We do radio.
Billboards.
Billboards, yeah.
Not TV. You're getting to social media.
We've just recently done a TV
Oh,
bit
right.
of TV as well,
Okay.
but not too much. We've never really done a lot of TV. Yeah.
And and the logo, the brand.
Yeah.
Your demographic. What's the demographic you're heading for these days?
Oh, look, sushi is anyone and everyone. It's just, there's no real demographic in terms of who will eat it. You'll get grandparents bringing in their grandchildren. It's amazing who loves sushi. I think it's just so shareable that people have had the opportunity to just try one piece with a friend or something and just got hooked on it. So but it's predominantly, I would say, younger people would be our target market, say between 18 and say 35. Probably more.
Why do you think that is?
More female, I would say. I think because it's such an active person's food.
Right.
Like you go to a St Pierre's. I saw something interesting yesterday, actually. I saw a lady. I was in Christchurch, and I was standing outside our shop in Rolleston, and a customer walked into our shop, looked at the sushi, and walked out and walked into a Subway, right?
Okay.
Which was a couple of doors next to us, and I always love watching customers what they do. And she walked in there, and as soon as she walked in the Subway, there was a queue there. She walked out of the Subway, she came back to St Pierre's and bought sushi.
Right.
Because I think St Pierre's is great because it's quick.
Yep.
It's fresh, it's tasty, it's got the healthy halo, and it's quick. I know you don't eat a lot of rice, Andrew. You're only a sashimi man.
I'm into my keto, but yeah. But actually, with that, people and I remember we've had this discussion before. But you have product that's behind glass, and then I remember when I had the shop opposite you in 277. One day in the evening when everyone had closed, you had all these people come in and they put these refrigerated trays out the front. Yeah. And the next day you were selling it, and there was a thing about picking it up and actually being able to hold the product. Was that a thing? Was that something that changed?
I think people do like to handle sushi. Like they like to pick it up and have a look at it.
Right.
Just, double check every piece and, it's a bit like a buffet. Our shops are like a buffet. When you go to a buffet restaurant, you look at what you want to eat. And I think St Pierre's is very much that kind of buffet experience where you have a lot of options.
Yes.
And you want to just make sure that you're going to pick something that you like.
So you're giving the power to, and they're actually to the customer, but also they're seeing exactly what they're going to buy. They're not seeing on a board that gets delivered. It actually, Who do you reckon your biggest competitor is?
It's hard to say really who our competitor is because I think in a lot of ways we're kind of in our own little world. To be honest, where I think, because quite often I'll say to people, we're in the fast food. Oh, no, you're not in the fast food business. You're not fast food. They say to me like this. I say, well, it is fast. You can walk in there and grab it quickly.
Why
do you
perceive
it's like that?
Why is that, do you think?
I think probably because it's more healthy, that they think it's not fast food. It's not like
there's a connotation with fast food.
That's got to be American or something
unhealthy.
like that. A burger or a pizza or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got Bento Bowl.
Yeah.
We've got, which is hot food.
Yeah.
We've got sushi, which is the majority of the business.
Yeah.
Are you still doing the fresh fish?
Yeah, we've got a couple of shops that still sell fresh fish.
A couple?
Yeah.
Not two?
Yeah, two, yeah.
How many stores have you got total?
We've got about, it's over 70. It's about 77 now, I think.
And how many are you opening a year?
We open about, maybe it depends on the year, but obviously during COVID, none. But on average, about 3, I would say, a year.
Is that going to? Do you think there's room for more growth?
I think there is a lot of room, a lot of potential. There's a lot of people that are not near a St Pierre still in New Zealand, so there is still a lot of potential. We're opening in Palmerston North next year. We don't have a shop there. We've just opened our first store in Dunedin, believe it or not.
Wow!
And that's just gone absolutely crazy. It's been so busy. Yeah,
because that's
been long overdue, that shop.
People are familiar with the brand now, right?
Yeah.
So when you open up, people know the brand.
Yeah.
Do you have a bento bowl down there, or is it just sushi?
We will have a bento bowl there. It's already built, but it's not open because we cannot handle it. If we just couldn't handle it, opening bento and sushi at the same time, it wouldn't be possible because it's just too busy. So we're going to let the sushi slow down a bit. Then we're going to open the bento bowl.
Why has it taken so long to open in Dunedin?
Just haven't found the right location.
Right. So you're pretty picky with that.
Very picky. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're in malls, sometimes you're not in malls.
Yeah. Most of our shops aren't in malls, although people perceive us as being in malls because that's how we started.
Right.
Yeah. But most of our shops are not in shopping malls. They're in shopping centres, but not actually in indoor shopping centres. Yeah.
And I'm thinking of the beautiful Westfield Mall we've got here in Newmarket, amazing building.
Yes.
An amazing store. We've got that sushi train.
Yes.
So another experiment.
Yep.
That wouldn't have been a cheap experiment.
No. The K10 is the brand there. It's called K10, which is, it's sort of short for kaiten. Kaiten sushi is the conveyor belt sushi word in Japan, kaiten, Kaiten. So I thought, well, K10 is sort of sounds a bit similar, and we gave it our first attempt, and I think we did a pretty good job there.
It's great, beautiful looking store.
And we've got a second one in Ponsonby too. Yeah.
Wow. So all these different concepts, K10. But you actually, for my 40th birthday, you gave me this book, Origin of the Brands.
Yes.
And what that talks about is, as far as branding is concerned, make sure you stick to your knitting in that regard. And I guess what you've done is you've created different brands. You've got St Pierre's Sushi, and you've got Bento Bowl, and then you've got K10.
Yeah.
So is that something you do, is create a brand for a product? Right.
If I feel that, that's the way I've done it in those three cases. If I feel that the category is justified to stand on its own 2 feet, we've give it a go like that. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Because it's very tempting just to say, let's just sell something on the side and see how it goes.
Yeah.
To actually set up a proper shop and commit it to a different name and so on, it's, you think, then you need a whole new social media presence for that. But I think really that's the way to go. Yeah, that's the way for us anyway.
And if we have a look at your store in Ponsonby, I mean, you've kind of got a mini food mall there, haven't you? A mini food court. It is kind of, yeah. You've got sushi, and you've got another shop window with Bento Bowl.
Yes.
And you've got the K10.
Through to the back where they've got the sushi tray and the K10.
You're creating your own little mall empire, your food mall empire.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening? I guess it depends location.
It depends on the location, yeah.
Yeah.
If you've got enough space and so on. Yeah.
And drive-through, what happened there? What's happened with drive-through?
Yeah, well, we thought, obviously the whole fast food industry, especially after COVID, drive-through has become a very common way that people like to purchase. And we've opened one in Onehunga. It's our first one. And it was a bit of an experiment, and it's going pretty well.
Yeah.
But still, our customers love to come into the store.
Okay.
They do love to come in and have a look at the sushi and sit down and eat their sushi.
Right.
The drive-through is more for like the person who's in a hurry, the builder, the electrician, the mum with a couple of kids in the back seat, doesn't want to get out of the car, that sort of thing.
And it's the sort of food you can eat in a car, right? So on the go.
Not if you're driving. Have you tried to use chopsticks while driving, Andrew? It's very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it.
Are they chopsticks? Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And what about, you did talk about ownership of buildings and ownership. Is that something that you're getting into as well, trying to own your own buildings if you can?
I mean, we have had a few opportunities over the years to, when our shops have come up for sale and so on, to purchase a few shops. So, we do have a few properties, And we're starting to build like 1 or 2 from scratch ourselves. So that's something different.
I just want to talk about staff, and it'd be great if we could throw a video in here of that awards evening that you had, or that awards day, because just the energy that you capture there. Tell me about the staff side of the business.
Well, we have got amazing staff. Like, we've had Alfred, who you know, right? Alfred's been with St Pierre's for 32 years.
Wow.
He's our longest standing employee besides myself and my brothers, right?
Wow, yeah.
No, so we've actually had some very long-term staff in the company. We actually have a profit-sharing plan for our staff as well.
Yep.
So anyone who's been in the company for 6 months or more, this is something that my brother Perry came up with. So we actually share the profits of the business with our staff.
Right.
And so that created an amazing glue with our managers and their teams.
Yeah.
And that has been going for 28 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're giving some sort of ownership to people that stay long.
But after that, we also started a partnership program, which means it's not a franchise, but we actually bring those managers that have been, the absolute pillars of our business into the into the front line as shareholders in the shops. So whenever we open a new shop now, 9 out of 10 of them will be with a partner. So if you've been working with St Pierre's and you're doing a great job as a manager, you've managed 1 or 2 stores, you've proven you can make a profit, you've proven you can develop your people, your staff, you're great at holding people, developing them into having a future as well with St Pierre's,
wow, yeah.
then you get that opportunity.
Wow.
And it's a great opportunity for people, actually. It's fantastic. Wow. We're like Disneyland coming to town in some of these places. Timaru, Ashburton, Nelson. Like when we open, it's huge crowds.
Yeah, that's great.
It's amazing. Yeah.
But you're actually providing for your staff almost a career path.
That's right. I mean, our mission, actually, our purpose, the purpose is to actually create opportunities for others.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's for customers as well as staff?
Yeah.
What do you put first, customers or staff? Or are staff your customers?
It's a great question, but I think you've got to put your staff first.
Okay.
Yeah, because if your staff aren't engaged, your customers aren't going to be very happy, are they? You know?
Well, I'm just thinking about you opening a store in a remote location. You've got 70 stores, there's 3 of you brothers that are involved in the business.
Yeah.
You're opening a store, the trust and the enthusiasm that you've got of a driven manager that has a profit share, an ownership of and some ownership.
Yeah.
There's going to be a completely different attitude, isn't there? Would that be right?
Absolutely, yeah. But when we did open Dunedin, for example, we had 3 of our top managers from Christchurch come to help. We had our partner from Invercargill come.
Wow.
We had people from all over the country coming to support that person.
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
You must be very proud.
Yeah. So that could not happen. If you just open that shop as an individual owner without any support, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just couldn't handle it. You'd close within 2 days. You say, I can't handle this.
Yes.
You know, you couldn't do it.
But you've got that determination.
You've got that support mechanism with St Pierre's because of its size. And I guess the biggest challenge we have over time is that people always perceive that if you're a chain, you can't be that good in food, right?
Yeah.
They think that, if I go to this individual little sushi shop, their sushi's going to be better than St Pierre's. But,
okay.
The way that we've developed the business, though, is that our ingredients are really what sets our product apart. It's like you've got all these components. It's like your car. If you've got a car that's a made in Japan car and you go and get a couple of fake parts for it, it's not going to be the same, is it? And so we built this amazing machine with all of our ingredients, everything from our nori to our wasabi, ginger, everything has been really handpicked over the last 40 years to find the best supplier. So those components are really critical to our success. But then you've got the people factor as well, where you've got all this knowledge and experience of people that are in that store, running that store, doing a great job, because that's always been my worry that, people say, how can you grow a business and be any good, So that's our constant challenge. But I think we've lined up all the right ducks in a row to achieve that, to be able to keep growing and actually have a really good quality product.
It sounds to me the passion that you've often spoken to me that you want the best nori, you want the best wasabi, you want the best soy sauce. But
best that people can afford, right?
Okay.
I mean, I could go and get the most ridiculously expensive $200 a 100 gram wasabi, but
but you don't compromise on the quality. No. And one of the things I must admit I really admire is, I think it's not like going to a bar and opening a bottle of beer and handing it to someone. You're actually creating the product.
Everything's cooked from scratch on site. Every single ingredient that you eat in a St Pierre's shop has been cooked there in the store.
So how do you maintain the standard throughout 70 stores?
Well, we've got operations team, we've got food safety teams, we've got a huge infrastructure behind the shops that supports them. Yeah. But it all starts with those right ingredients, I have a lot of companies coming to us and saying, we'd love to supply you with your nori, your ginger, whatever. it'll be cheaper. We can get it
Yes.
from this country. It's cheaper. You'll save this hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. No one will really know the difference.
Right.
You know, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I always say that there's only one person that's going to know the difference that will matter to.
Yeah.
Me.
You.
Yeah.
Right. Very high standard. And
Yeah.
what about your price point? I mean, you know, how's that? I mean, there's been massive inflation over the last
There has
few
been.
years.
We actually haven't put our prices up for over a year and a half.
Right.
Which is probably not a good thing.
Yeah, right.
for the business.
And
but,
you did a
yeah,
Sushi of the Day thing. How's that?
We
how's
still do
gone?
that. Yeah. We still have the Sushi of the Day every day that you can buy at a reasonable price. But yeah, it's challenging. But being affordable is one of our basically one of our foundations as well. If we're not affordable, we're not going to survive.
Yeah.
So, we have to be good value for money. We also have great relationships with our suppliers. We buy directly from all the salmon farms, the chicken processors. We don't, we've got really good relationships with our suppliers. All the Japanese ingredients directly from QP mayonnaise, from Yamasa, all of those big, high quality, reputable, been around longer than St Pierre's. I think our three key suppliers have a combined history of over 1,000 years.
No.
Yeah, our soy sauce, our vinegar, and our nori. Some 4 or 5 products, I think it is, over 1,000 years. Yeah.
You've listened to a lot of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
You've read a lot of business books. People listening to this that would be, similar to maybe you 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? They're thinking about getting into business.
Well, the only experience I really have is what I've been through, really. I can't comment to someone who wants to set up an IT company or some other business, but all I know is that, you do learn a lot by losing money.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So if you go into business and you're successful from day one,
Yep.
I think you're really lucky for a start.
Right. But are you lucky?
But are you lucky that's it,
Yes.
You just hit the right, press the right button at the right time, or, you've got to go through those hard times to really realise what works and what doesn't work. Yeah.
I was talking to Andrew from Be Pure, and he was very, very similar. It's actually it's in your failures that you grow. It's when you make a mistake, and it's the determination to continue, and that's obviously happened to you going forward. So, people are reading a lot of books, that now they're listening to a lot of podcasts, and everyone seems to be wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening?
I do think people do think like that a lot, and give it a go. You've got to give it a go, because you'll be kicking yourself if you get to the age of 65, whatever. You think, I should have done this, should have done that.
So try it.
Yeah, you've got to give something a go. But I guess, you've got to be still realistic. You can't be naive about it and just go ahead and mortgage your house and go and do something stupid. So you've got to do your due diligence, or whatever idea you have.
I'm thinking about you doing your due diligence in your 20s on Lambton Quay by going up to complete strangers as a 20-year-old and asking them if there'd be fish would sell here. I mean, that's due diligence, isn't it? So it's amazing. So
pretty raw data, but anyway.
What's that?
Pretty raw data.
Pretty raw data, yeah.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next? Well, I think we're a family business, right? So we have got our children now working in the business, so we'd like to see them grow in the business over time. It's a bit different to when we were young, like there was 3 of us in one shop, whereas now there's half a dozen of them in 70 shops. It's a more daunting kind of task. But they're doing a great job. They're really supportive and developing well in the business. We've got 4 out of 6 of our kids working in the business.
Okay.
So there's
a succession plan?
Yeah, there's a succession plan, but you can wish for a succession, but it doesn't always happen. But it's going really well.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of opportunities still in New Zealand at St Pierre's, and who knows, maybe we'll give it a go overseas sometime.
Has that been talked about? I mean, people must be saying that to you all the time, are they?
Well, They do. I mean, Australia especially, you have a lot of Kiwis living in the Gold Coast and in that area who would love a St Pierre's there. They always say the first thing I do when I come back to New Zealand is to go to St Pierre's.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
We get that message all the time on our on email from our customers.
Right.
But it'd be interesting to see whether sushi St Pierre's would taste the same in Australia, because we're so blessed in New Zealand, to be honest.
Right.
We've got beautiful fresh avocados.
Yep.
We've got the salmon that we get in every day.
Yep.
You know, we've got all of that. We've got some magic things in New Zealand that make St Pierre's successful that it would be hard to replicate exactly, I think, out of New Zealand.
So when you go overseas, you go to America, you go to Australia, and you obviously try their sushi.
Yeah. Well, there's good sushi everywhere.
Right.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But ours is just different. It was I was in Harajuku, which is in Tokyo, right? And it's a very young, sort of trendy area. And I actually walked into a New Zealand shop there. It was a Cookie Time store.
Oh.
And Cookie Time had opened a store there. This is going back about 7 or 8 years ago. And there was a young Japanese lady there, and I started talking to her, saying, "Oh, I'm from New Zealand." And she started talking to me in a real Kiwi accent. And I said, "Oh," she said, "I'm from Christchurch." Like this.
Wow.
I said, "Oh, I thought you were Japanese." She says, "I am." I said, "I was born in New Zealand. My parents came to live in New Zealand like 25 years ago, and I'm born there, and I've come over to run this shop." So I asked her, "How's the business going?" And she said it was going well. And then I said, "Well, I'm actually from St Pierre's Sushi."
You're kidding me.
I said to her, "I'm from St Pierre's
Right.
Sushi."
Yeah.
And then she said to me, "Oh my God, I miss St Pierre's
There you
Sushi."
go. That must feel good.
I said,
Yeah.
"You are in Tokyo, you're in Japan, and you miss St Pierre's Sushi? It's not the same here."
Oh, wow, there
She
you
goes,
go. The ultimate compliment.
It was the ultimate compliment. It was funny. But it just shows you people are used to what they are used to, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like change too much.
We're probably going to have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Any final words?
No, I just want to thank you, Andrew, for inviting me in today. And I've had a great time.
It's an amazing story. It really is. It's the most unlikely of stories where you've got Greek immigrants coming over here, starting a fish shop, going into sushi, battling through retail, challenges and that sort of stuff, inventing so many different brands, trying stuff, and it's now a word that's synonymous in New Zealand, and it sounds like there's a future as well. So thank you so much. Really enjoyed today.
I have too, Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the best, mate.
Thank you very much.
Good on you.